Hey, what's up everybody? Thank you for joining me for Illustration Masterclass today on this fine Friday. And what a fine Friday it is, because we're going to talk about one of my favorite things on earth, brushes. Yes, it is time for the Winter 2023 brush set to be released out into the world to do wondrous things for lovely artists such as yourselves. You're going to use them in all kinds of ways I could have never foreseen. And that's the beauty of these tools. People can use them for their own workflows in all kinds of unique and interesting ways. What a beautiful thing that is. So thank you for joining me. If you're watching over on Behance, then I can interact with you directly and we can have a little chit chat. If you have any questions about anything, just want to say hello, that's the place to be. be.net/Adobe Live. To be or not to be. Think of it that way if you wish. That's the way to do it. That is where you will find the chat where I am going to be interacting the most. Of course, if you have any comments over on YouTube, I may see them, I may not. It's hard for me to keep track of multiple chats while I'm trying to do this, but hey, watch wherever you're comfortable. If you're watching over on Twitter, welcome as well. I will not be following over there, but you're more than welcome to watch and learn. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into Photoshop and take a look at these brushes. Let's do it. All right, so there are lots and lots of goodies here, lots of goodies. As with every quarterly brush update that I do, you always get a minimum of 20 new brushes. I believe there are 26 in this brush set right here. Sometimes there are themes that coincide with the seasons, sometimes not. With the winter brushes, there often are, and this time around is no exception. As you will see that I've added a few more little winter tree tools here for you, which are really fun to work with. Even though it's no longer fall, I decided I wanted to add some more leaf blocker tools for you, and those are in there as well. And we're also going to cover one of my favorite new brushes for creating snow, even though that was not really its original design intention. That is the Party 1 brush right here. All right, but we're going to start from the top and work our way down, okay? Hello, Christelle. Hello, RB. Hello, Mohammed. Hello, Oliver. And hello, Sam. And Mohammed as well. And Rob. And who else am I missing? Rick. What's up, Rick? And Umacorn and Cryo. And Reverb Mike. Oh, nice to see you all, gang. Kathleen is here as well. Hi, Kathleen. Nice of everybody to be joining and watching today. If you like brushes, you're in the right place. Let's start with the Hatch Mess brush. And here it is. You ever want to do some sort of cross-hatching in a haphazard kind of way, just to add a bit of texture here and there? Well, this brush is your new best friend. And check it out. One of the best things to do is to use it with a selection, right? So here we have a selection. And let's say I want to hatch light, and then heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier as I go until we get to almost solid black right there. Well, now you can do so. Isn't that great? Look at that. Zooming in all the way so you can see the quality of each of these strokes. Everything I do for you all is high res. I create high res tools so you can do a lot of big work with these brushes. But this is something that pairs nicely with the inking tools that you've used in the past. For example, if you have any of the Dottie inkers or brushes that have been sort of similar or designed with those as a base point, a starting off point, a launch point, if you will, you're going to really like this. So if you were to go back, for example, to the fall 2022 brush set where we had a couple of brushes here, the Blobby Boy. If you were to use the Blobby Boy to draw, okay, and then use this Hatch Mess tool to add some cross hatching somewhere in that drawing, you'll see that the quality of the line really, really works well. They pair nicely. It's like pairing wines and cheese, you know? Here you go. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to give you these recommendations and let you know what plays nicely with what. All right. So that is the Hatch Mess. Bouncing back up here to the top. We also have a Hatch Mess CD. Those of you who've been using my brushes for a while know that CD stands for compact disc. No, I'm just kidding. CD stands for color dynamics, and this is just indicating for you that this is a version of a brush that has color dynamics employed. So if I were to use the regular Hatch Mess brush here with a red, okay, color will be consistent all the way through. If I grab the Hatch Mess CD, okay, not only is the brush more dense, as you can see here, but there is variation in hue, saturation, and value with every instance of the stamp as it is applied to the canvas when you paint. Now, what's nice about this is if I were to actually color with it like this, okay, you get a really cool, interesting sort of a thing happening there on the inside of the area in which I'm coloring. Right there, see that? Look at that. Very fun. Alright, so this, of course, you can get creative, but really nice for textural work, really nice for background work, really nice for just adding color to something, but having it not be so flat. So, lots of cool ways to use this. Of course, my mind goes straight to picture books and Rumpelstiltskin, and you got a big fat pile of hay, and you just go like this. And now, I've got my hay right there. Spinning hay into gold. Right? There it is. Ta-da! Alrighty. Let's take a look at the new Belge. Hey, some folks might be like, wait a second, I think I know what this is, and you would be correct. If you ever used the Belgian Comics Inker, one of my most popular brushes of all time, which was so popular it was even added as a default brush in Adobe Fresco, this is a variation on that brush, and works in a similar way, similar kind of marks, but as with a lot of my tools, I like to make variants, I like to give people options. And I think a lot of you will really enjoy drawing with this brush. Quick pause here for any comments or questions. Barbara's joining us from Nashville. Awesome. Steven's here. Hello, hello. Sam, thanks for providing a link to the brushes. All the brushes are provided, yes, right here, gang. Go here to your brushes panel where there's a little tiny drop-down menu and tap on that. And here you see the option to get more brushes. Now when you tap on that, you're going to get taken to a magical land where you sign in with your Adobe credentials, your ID and password, and are then presented with over 2,000 brushes to download, all organized nicely in little brush sets for you. Okay, and the quarterly updates are there as well, dating all the way back to 2018. Here we have the new Belge. Ah, the new Belge. Let's take a look. Oh, yes. Ah, it's a great inking tool. Fine lines. Chunky lines. It's all there. All there. So, why don't we do a little drawing with it and just see how it looks. Any Asterix fans out there? You know that sort of look where the eyes are kind of close together and get kind of a big nose. I'm not going to necessarily draw Asterix because honestly I don't know how to draw them. I'm just thinking about sort of how Uderzo drew stuff, right? The artist on Asterix. And you can see why this brush is named what it's named, right? Makes sense, I think. Ooh, he says, I like that brush. What is that? There it is. What do you think? What do you think? Let me know. Play around with it, use it, draw with it, and get back to me with your comments. Definitely different from the original. The original didn't have as much bumpy texture as you can see this has, like along the edges, right? Yep, it's going to make different kinds of marks depending on how you angle the brush. Rotate it with your wrist, you know, change the orientation. It's nice. You know I love inking tools, had to do it. Moving on to the leaf blocker. The leaf blocker. Look at this. Just so much fun stuff going on with that brush. Lots and lots of textural uses here. Doesn't have to be used explicitly for leaves. If you were to go back and watch the Adobe Live stream that I did yesterday for the French audience, Adobe Live France, I created a winter illustration, an ice skating scene with some animals. And the water that was frozen, that they were skating on, actually had some leaf blocker in it. And the reason for that was I liked the texture that it created. If you can imagine, I had, you know, the frozen lake. And what I had done was laid down some dark medium blue, kind of like this, and then I had some white bits and pieces in there. You know, and I could do that with this brush. See that? Just kind of breaks up the space in an interesting way. And then I went darker along the edge. Okay, where there were going to be some reflections and things like that from stuff in the environment, not just the sky. And then I used the leaf blocker New Yorker right underneath it to pass over that and soften those transitions, because the leaf blocker New Yorker responds to pen pressure and will control the opacity of the brush based on that pressure that you're applying. So that gives you a more sort of a subtle application of the same sort of textures and ideas, right? So anyway, go back and watch that replay. If you've not, don't worry about if you don't speak French or not. That's not important. You can totally pick up on what I'm doing if you watch the whole demo. And in that demo, I also show you how to do really easy animation using motion paths. So the characters go ice skating along on the ice after I've drawn the environment. So definitely worth a watch. Check it out. If you go to YouTube, just go Adobe Live France, Kyle Webster, and hunt through and you can find it. Or sort by date, look for the most recent, and you'll find it right there. So those are the leaf blocker brushes, lots of fun. Now, the leaf blocker New Yorker, I just want to point out, I believe actually both of these will again take advantage of color dynamics in a very subtle way, okay? If I zoom in, you should see that's very subtle, but it's there, all right? And the leaf blocker New Yorker, same deal. Okay, subtle, 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 but you can control things with pen pressure. The other thing about the leaf blocker New Yorker is when I'm using light pressure, which we're able to see more clearly, is the texture file associated with that brush coming through. So that's going to basically knock out, cut out sections of the stamp as it's pushed along. There's a dual brush in play that's doing the same thing. So the combination of the two is going to give you what are completely unique marks all the way throughout, as long as you're using light or medium pressure, and that's a really great thing. So I'm always striving for ways to make brushes a little less predictable, not in all cases, but pretty frequently depending on what the purpose is, and here you're going to get a lot of that. Moving along to barcode, well, you know, just based on the stamp, which you can see very plainly here on the screen, the barcode brush does what it says. Barcode! Pretty cool. Now again, I know you're going to find ways to use this that I did not envision, but in my mind, I was imagining a scenario where, for example, let's say you have a science fiction situation where you've got like some buildings. Okay, let's imagine. And you could have these buildings and use the barcode brush to pass down like this to create the impression of there being lights or columns or whatever you like along those buildings as details, you know? It's kind of a cool thing to think about. You can even do this. You can kind of stamp it along for more texture, grab a lighter color, and then pass over the top again. So just for a quick idea, for creating some cool sci-fi kind of buildings or whatever. But I'm sure you'll find other ways to use it as well. Just underneath it, you'll notice there's a barcode pressure brush. Now, the barcode pressure brush does what it says because the word pressure is involved. A lot of times if I add the word pressure to a brush, this is signaling to you that with light pressure, you're going to get a finer mark, or smaller diameter, I should say. Right? With heavier pressure, you're going to get a fatter mark. Now, with both of these brushes, if you were to use a bright color, you should also get some very subtle variation in the hue as you play with it. And you should see that happening right now. Okay? It's subtle, but it's there. Now, you can see that as I build the strokes up on top of one another, this is another example of how you could create a sense of movement in an illustration. So as I go, we have that movement in a very specific direction happening with the brush strokes there, and because of the color dynamics building on top of one another with each of those stamps, you're getting a pretty cool effect there. So another example of where this could be useful, if you can imagine, would be something like tree bark, right? And a lot of brushes are really good for this kind of thing, but imagine here's a tree trunk, okay? And we give it a base color, and then we come over the top of it with this brush right here, right? And just continue to pass over it, go a little lighter on one side, and back and forth. And because of that directional control we have, we do some pretty nifty things there, right? And the lighter pressure will create a smaller mark as well. So it's fun to be able to vary those in and out, right? And let's zoom in on that so you can see how nice that looks. Isn't that fun? Look at that. Think about these kinds of applications for picture books, things like that, just adding a bit of interest to flat shapes that you have in your art. Moving on, let's check out the screened ink brushes. Now, these are more drawing brushes, but they're very different looking from the average. Now, if I were to draw something with this, okay, so what you're going to see is this cool diagonal sort of broken up, segmented line quality all the way throughout. So again, I think this is great for comics. This is great for achieving a very specific kind of a style in your line art that people will be scratching their heads trying to figure out how it happened. It almost looks like you took regular line art and passed it through some kind of a filter where it did a motion blur, if you've ever used motion blur, at a specific angle. There you go. Really, these are some of my favorites I've ever made, because a lot of the times, one of the exciting things about making digital tools is finding ways to create something that would be almost impossible to produce a line of this quality with traditional materials. So if I zoom in there and you look at that more closely, you'll see what I mean. I'm not exactly sure how you would ever really quite get this level of control this quickly with traditional materials to achieve this kind of a look. And it really does do something interesting to the line. You do also have enough control, as you can see when I'm drawing with it, to do exactly what you need. It's not like I'm fighting the tool. I can draw very comfortably with it. So it's quite nice. Now I just kind of feel like I need to finish this cap, but I won't. All right, so that's the screened ink, and there are two versions of it. Screened ink 2 is a little bigger and has a slightly sharper edge to it, and the diagonals are pulled a little bit further apart from one another. There's more space between them. So there you go. Any questions? The 2023 is not up yet. That's correct. This is a preview of the set. It'll be live in North America next week, I believe. No, sorry. The date I was given, I think, is the 23rd of January. 23rd of January. I don't have a masterclass next week due to my travel schedule, and so I wanted to make sure I got this preview out before the set is live for everybody. So yeah, January 23rd in North America. Usually it takes up to 10 days or so for it to spread throughout the world. But the trick I always tell people is if you go to the brush download page and you're in a country outside of the United States or Canada, what you can do is change the region at the bottom of the Adobe page that you land on to United States. And this should most times allow you with your Adobe ID by changing the region to access that newer brush set, okay? Let's see, anything else? What are the configuration parameters set up applied for this project? Oh, nothing special. I think this is just 2100 pixel square document. Nothing fancy. When does profile review start? Date. I don't know the answer to that question, sorry. Do I apply artistic methods and technical rules for the aesthetic final render result? Yes, but that stuff's often happening in the background in my mind. It's not something that's, I'm not purposely thinking about it in such great detail as I go. It's usually just kind of happening in the background after many years and many years of drawing and painting. That's your birthday. Well, happy birthday, Isis, then, on January 23rd. Happy birthday to you. Sing you a birthday song. This is your birthday song. It isn't very long. Hold for laughs. Okay, moving on to the good chonk brush. Good chonk. Here it is. Chonk, 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 chonk. What do you think? So now this is one of those great brushes for digital painting. What I mean by that is straight up standard. I've got to paint something. I want to use fairly solid color along the way. I want to have a tiny bit of texture, but I want to have a lot of control to go thin to super fat and get some different edges, okay? Depending on the angle of the brush. Well, here you go. This is your friend. This is also a brush I envision concept artists who do a lot of silhouette work on the outset using frequently. People who do character design and start with some kind of silhouette for a character. So, you know, building up, and that the triangle sort of edge to this brush, I think really helps with that kind of thing for people who do this kind of work. You know, throw in some shoulder pads or whatever. This kind of thing. You know, you're doing like a silhouette as a starting point for your project or whatever, and then you start to modify that silhouette by adding things here and there. So, you know, I'm gonna add like some stuff here. And for people who use that method of, you know, additive, subtractive, super fast, you use the X key to toggle between white and black if those are your foreground and background colors, right? So you can add in some horns here, some kind of helmet. Maybe this person has long hair. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe they got a cloak, and you know, see, now you just change the whole silhouette. And then you hit X, and you can carve back into it, right? So it's that kind of brush. Helpful for this kind of work. Okay? You get the idea. Etc., etc. And if you need a bit more snap, the good chonk snap just underneath it is going to give you thinner, sharper marks at the end of a stroke. Okay, it's going to taper a lot faster for you. All right, there you have it. The way you control how much texture is shown is by the tilt of the brush. If I tilt away from vertical, if I'm vertical and I hit it like this, get a totally solid mark. If I'm tilting, whoops, like that, see how more texture comes through? Tilty, tilty, a bit more texture. You can probably hear me slamming my stylus there onto the surface. Now we move on to the square bear. Yay, I love this brush. I just like brushes like this, brushes that do weird stuff. It's the kind of thing where, again, like, you know, for architecture or just for adding some texture to something, it'd be so fun to work with this in an additive or subtractive way. Right? Subtractive, I'm just holding down the tilde key. I'm on a North American keyboard, I can do that. If you're not, what you do is you go to your brush mode and change it to clear right here. Changing your brush mode to clear takes whatever active brush you're currently using and turns it into an eraser with all the same properties, the texture and everything else. Change it back to normal and you're back to drawing. Shortcut for that in the North American keyboard is the tilde key. Bum, 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 like that. And look at this, I just, in a matter of seconds, just creating this weird, cool thing here, right? There's so much you can do when you just start making marks and then respond to those marks. You say, what did I just put on the canvas? That kind of makes me think of fill in the blank, right? This does kind of make me think of like a urban sort of a scene. And I sort of want to finish it out as that. You know, I want to say, okay, I'm going to make this into a sort of a city scene. And I start getting involved with a lasso tool. And I make it so that there's like a little cutaway here between the buildings. Right? Where now basically I can build in some other interesting business right there. Maybe our hero character is here in the foreground. Make the brush smaller, start to design in there. Some cool shapes. But you can see how this happens quickly. You start to get like ideas and you're like, oh, I've got an idea, I've got an idea, I got an idea, I want to play around with it. Here's this person, they're just kind of emerging. Get that lasso tool involved. Etc. Make marks, see what happens, gang. The noise rake. Ah, that sounds familiar. Well, it's a little different from the original, as you can see. First and foremost, this is an enormous brush. 800 pixels. Big, big, big. Look at that. But, oh so good for rake stuff. If you've never used rake brushes before, they're so much fun. For example, check this out. I'm making a picture book for the kidlets, and I say, oh, I've got a water scene here. I grab a nice deep dark color with a blue, and I just follow along like so. And just like that, you got your nice wavy sea. Throw a little shape in behind it. You know, here's the hero on their boat. Braving the storm. Ta-da! Where's my publishing deal? We also have the Spatter rake. There it is. Similar, but different. A lot more lines within the shape of the rake, but also you get this really fun random spatter occurring inside the boundaries of the brushstroke. So again, lots and lots of fun to play with. You know, pass over a couple times and then hit it on the outside like that. And again, you know, if you're doing things like a tree or whatever, you just cannot do this any other way. It's so fast, it's so fun, right? Look at that. One of the things I love to do with rakes is make circles. See that? Just hold your stylus in place and make little circles and watch it spin until you get cool shapes like that. Now, one thing you could do with that is this. Ready? We just go 1, 2, make it a little smaller, 3, and we move those over here, and then we grab our green and we just go ba-bum, 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 beep, 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 beep. And we start making some pretty little flowers. Okay, cool, right? Just put on your thinking caps, play around, be expressive. Now we come to the trees I mentioned, the wind trees. Haha, get it? Wind tree? You know I love the puns. Okay. Several of these, I think numbers 1 and 3 are probably my faves. But all you have to do is think, all right, where do I want to put a tree? And just start building trees, trees, trees. Ba-bum. And once you've done that, you got your little winter forest right there. That's pretty much it. Okay? Go ahead and slice off the bottom for the snow. All right? And there's not much else to do there. What you could do, though, is this. Go ahead and throw a little sky behind there. Okay? Go ahead and throw a little snow in front. Okay, and the only thing left to do, grab the same brush, and with a little bit of white, just paint in some bits here and there where maybe the snow has covered some of the treetops. Okay, like this. And don't worry, I'll show you something in just a moment that's going to make this a little nicer. Just bear with me here, okay? You gotta trust me here. So remember that thing about additive, subtractive, and all that business? Okay, so now I've got some snowy bits there, okay? Now I just hold down the tilde key, or I go over here and I say clear, and I remove some bits and pieces as well. Sorry for the noise. You can hear me tapping, tapping, tapping away. And that just gives you this nice, random, less predictable, less patterned result. And you're done. Zoom in. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I want you to, like, never be afraid to do this. If you want to clean stuff up, right? You want to clean stuff up. go ahead. Clean up the bits you don't want. All right, there's no rule that says you can't. Whoops. But look at that. Think about all the ways you could use this for design, right? For graphic design stuff, for a greeting card. So much you could do. If you need to fill in some areas here in the back, right? Just throw a little layer behind. Add a bit of depth there. Some thicker bits. Easy, easy, easy. And it really works, really works. Pausing for questions. Hi Marie, nice to see you. Let's see, any questions from anybody? I see a lot of comments, nice comments, thanks everybody. Some new folks joining us. Zay is here, hello, hello. Isis is here, hi, hi, hi. Peg, you love the rake, so do I. Tina Marie, hey, happy little trees, yep. Nice callback to good old Bob Ross. A squirrel would be a good thing to run through, yes. Good night, Mohammed, thanks for joining us. All right, so moving on, let's check out Wintree Dose, number 2. Whoa, this one's a lot more dense. And look at the range here from thin. Okay, so you can go super, super thin. Here you got a lot of control. And then you can really beef it up towards the bottom. You're also gonna get scattering so that you can do multiples and really set yourself up for a nice collection of trees here. Okay, now you might be thinking about color. Don't worry, subtle color dynamics in play as they often are. Okay, demonstrate that here for you. Nice, nice, nice color dynamics. Okay, and I like to get nice and thick at the bottom here, and you can see how you could easily build up a little tree line with these. Again, very stylized. And that's the goal. We're looking for something that you wouldn't draw necessarily. You'd use some kind of a tool like a stamp or something like that if you were doing this with traditional media, right? But here we just make it so much faster, but we still give you lots and lots of control over the results. Maybe you want to have a tree that kind of curves, right? Now, here's the question. How do I actually control the direction? Remember, okay, brush settings. Come over to shape dynamics and adjust the control for angle to direction, okay? Now come over to your brush tip shape, look over here at the preview, and we're just going to rotate this away, okay? Now, when I paint again, see how it's following like an arrow? So I know that if I want to draw a tree at a certain angle, I can do that. So we go up and over, up and over. If I want to do these trees kind of curving off into off to the side here like this, that's what I do. So even though I make these brushes with presets, right, you are always able to adjust them to suit your own specific needs. Jazz? Jazz. Keep that in mind, okay, gang? Moving on, Wintree 3. Wintree 3. This one's super fun. Look at the shape. You can already see where this is going, right? Much broader. We go and we make a tree, just like that. So fun. Now this one is what I used yesterday in the demo for the Adobe Live France broadcast, where I made a quick background, winter trees, just like this, so that the ice skating folks could have a little environment behind them. Okay? And it was so easy. Took no time at all. I did the same thing with snow. I just kind of put some white on top of it here and there. Like that. Feels like cheating. But you're in control. You're the one making this happen. Okay, you're making decisions and you're making cool stuff. You're just doing it in a really fast, really fun way. Back on top with some green. Again, this is the key is this idea of just breaking stuff up enough in these instances where the pattern work is not at all visible. Okay? Now you've got a really pretty result. Go ahead and go dark, go light. That's a trick I use all the time, you know? Go super dark. Okay? Like this. So I'm using a dark, dark, dark green. Then I go lighter over the top like this. So what you get is this dark base, okay, and then you go lighter on top of that base, and it gives you the impression of the tree having more dimension, like the dark areas are sort of the interior of the tree, and the light areas are where the light is catching it, right? And you're going to get some leaves that are visible. Just a really fast, easy trick to use, works beautifully, okay? Remember that one, gang. Let's check out the Boulder brush. What is it? Well, I mean, the name kind of gives it away. But basically, it's going to give you this kind of stuff. Rocky kind of textures with a geometric flair. See that? So again, my preference for using this is with selections, as I often do with rocky stuff. So that's me just painting freely with it. But if you were to go ahead and design your own rock shapes, like so, you could then use this brush on the interior, go a little lighter up top, okay, and then kind of bear down a bit here towards the bottom. And maybe off to the side here. Let go. There you have an absolutely gorgeous rock. Look at that, took 2 seconds. I don't like the repetition of that shape, so I'll just break it up like that, using my lasso tool. Okay. This angle is too samey, so I just go boom, 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 up, up, up. And that's a good rock. See that? Zoom in so you can see that really clearly. Very handy for quick rock textural painting. But I know you'll find other ways to play with it as well. I just think can't go wrong with a good Boulder brush. So enjoy that one. Try it with different colors. You know, I can lock the layer transparency, come in here and throw some different colors in there. Just go all over the place with it. It's really fun to just all day, just play, okay? See what you get. That's the Boulder brush. Squircle Revisited. Squircle, you may remember from recent brush set. Well, here is the new Squircle. Now, the new Squircle, much like the old Squircle, is just a crazy assortment of circles and squares thrown on top of one another with a really nice gritty textural pattern. There's just nothing like it, and no mark you make is ever going to be the same as the previous mark. You've really got to try this one. Again, nice healthy dose of color dynamics baked in, okay? So you get these subtle shifts. If I were to just fill a whole area with this brush, it's very big, by the way, 712 pixel brush. But you can see it's pretty zippy. If I were to just fill a whole area and then zoom in, you're going to see all these fantastic shapes where a circle has cut out of another circle, or a square is cut out of a circle, or a circle cuts out of a square. Oh, I couldn't say that. And all the while, there's this sort of textural business going on there as well. So look how quickly you could create a pattern like this. Remember though, as with everything else, you can play with the brush settings. So watch this. I just turned off the texture setting. And now the result is I'm still going to get all the circles and squares and all the interesting business. Okay? But that grit is gone. And so you'll notice because the color dynamics are really quite subtle, there are areas that are going to be completely filled, okay, with a solid color, and other areas where there's a lot of interruption. Look at this. So you can just imagine how nice that is to break up an area, right, with a bit of subtle color and these unpredictable little changes. Lots of fun. And as before, you know I'm a big inking fan, so I couldn't help myself, had to add more inking. This is the Dampink brush. And once again, I'm influenced by some of the line work of the greats, you know, the advertising illustration that Andy Warhol did, for example, but a lot of that sort of mid-century stuff where the line just has a lot of personality. You know, look at the work of like Ronald Searle, people like that, and Ralph Steadman. Thinking about ways to make inking tools for people that have, you know, they add character to the line, and that's part of what makes the drawing appealing, is exactly that, you know, that whole quality to the line like this. It's just really fun. See that? It's the tool kind of makes you draw a certain way. Like you can't help yourself. Once you've tried it, you just sort of start to make different kinds of marks than you normally would. It's like you just can't help yourself. This is the result. You start to do things a bit differently, right? Much to the enjoyment of not just you, but of the person who is viewing the work. They go, man, there's something about that. It's just fun to look at. You get the idea. Okay? And if I zoom in now, you'll get a good look at how this brush lays it down. Okay, that is the Dampink. Dampink. Tell me what you think about that one, gang. What are your thoughts? You like it? You love it? Those are your two choices. But you see what I mean? This is the kind of thing where you're just like, oh, I've got to draw differently. Got to draw differently. I can't help myself. It's just something different is coming out of me when I draw with this tool. It just forces my hand, and it's gonna do different kinds of stuff. There you go, Dampink, Dampink. Moving on to the brush I advertised up top, which I love, and that is the Party brush, Party 1. Look at the stamp. You think, what's the big deal? But then, oh, look at that. You start to play with it, and oh, it's so much fun. Come on, gang. So, I want you to just free your mind. Think, what would I do with a brush like this? And the example I gave earlier was snow. Here we have this scene here. It's so fun to grab this brush and just start doing this. Creates such pretty little snow kind of patterns all over the place. Like that. I love it. And what I do is I throw all the snow down, right? Throwing it down, snow, snow, snow. But then, you say, Kyle, too much snow. I say, chill out. I know that. Think I don't know what I'm doing? I'm a professional, okay? Professional. Because once I throw all that down there, you know the drill, gang. You're going to hold it down, tilde key magic, and you start getting rid of snow. So first you're adding snow, but then you're just getting rid of it. Right? And now you get all kinds of weird, cool, wonderful little shapes you could never, ever predict. Because of that subtractive action. Just kind of spinning it around as I go. See? Zoom in on that. Look at all that goodness. Okay? Party time. That's the party brush. And it's lots of fun. Go ahead and grab a color, play with it, right? Have some fun. And then go ahead, go to your brush settings, and turn on color dynamics. Bump that hue jitter up to 10. Okay? Play with it some more. Now look. Oh. That's a good time. We'll grab an orange, because then you know there's going to be a lot of variation in there between reds and yellows and oranges. Look at that. Isn't that fun? So that's the party brush. And next in line, we have, speaking of party, confetti. Look at this one. Speaking of color dynamics, isn't that crazy? It's just all over the place. That's going to bounce you all over the place. You're never going to know what's going to happen with the colors with this one. So it's perfect for, well, confetti. That's why it's called confetti, right? But if you wanted to turn the color dynamics off, you could absolutely do that, or you can paint with black and you're not going to see any difference, right? But this is just a good sort of a spattery kind of a brush with some interesting shapes. No two are the same. No two stamps are the same thanks to dual brush. So the cutting and chopping action, the removal of pixels randomly throughout the course of the brush strokes is going to be what makes that possible. There's a Confetti 2 brush. This one has some opacity issues going on. I love it. Look at that. You're going to get some darks, you're going to get some lights, and it all is transparent or opaque, right? But you don't know what you're going to get. So really, really fun. Go ahead and grab a color with that. Okay? And you're going to have much more subtle color dynamics in play. Like so. Build that up, and you can have some really interesting grass kind of effects if you're doing something like a field in summer. Okay? So let's imagine that you have your shape, and you're just going to go slightly darker with the confetti brush all over the top of that. Let it scatter around, spatter around all over the place. Scatter, spatter, spatter, scatter. Okay, like so. Come in and trim away what you don't want. And take a look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Again, great for picture book stuff. Look at that. Feels like leaves and grass. Little bits of leaves, little bits of grass all over the place. Go a little darker in the foreground, you know? Even darker than that. Just kind of kick it up a notch here. So much you could do with this. Go super light. Here and there, here and there. See that? Really fun. All right, well, here are the last few brushes. These are inking tools, Ink Smack. Oops, here we go. There you are. Speaking of a lot of quality, this is fun to draw with right here. That's Ink Smack. Those of you who make comics and stuff, you know, you can have some really clean work, and then occasionally you need to draw something that's a bit more sort of gritty, and you just go like this. It's like there's an explosion or something, or you want to call out some sound effect. So you grab the Ink Smack, and it just adds that different quality to it. extra chunky on that A. See what I mean? There it is. Now the Ink Smack 2, I'll zoom in so you can see the difference here. Much sharper. See how the edge of this is a bit softer? The edge quality for this, much, much sharper. Okay, crisper, blacker. Okay? Both good options for that kind of work. And last but not least, inked out. Inked out. What do you mean you're inked out? Well, gang, we're inked out for today because that's the whole brush set. But this one is really fun to draw with. Give it a go. Thanks for hanging out with me. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Remember to be kind. And I'll say ciao for now.